What's going on, guys? In my last video, someone actually asked me if I could make a benchmark tracker. So here it is. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this benchmark tracker. Take however many stocks that you're looking at, create a hypothetical portfolio. At least that's what we're doing here. And then we're going to compare it against the benchmarks, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones Index. So pretty much what you can see here in column A, we have all of the tickers. So here's this little hypothetical portfolio with a bunch of stocks that you probably haven't heard of. Neither have I, so it's okay. And then here are the benchmark tickers, the SPY, the Qs, and the DIA. In column B, you have a nice little price chart because that's always fun to look at. Then you have the actual price, what you bought it for, the amount of money you put it in. So pretty much I had 10 stocks. So here are my 10 stocks. So that equals $1,000. So if this was a portfolio split evenly with $1,000, would I be better off putting it in these 10 stocks or putting it in one of the benchmarks, the $1,000? Next is the shares. So this is going to be a real simple equation, just kind of taking what your cost is and dividing it by the cost bias. That's how you get the amount of shares you have per stock. Then we have our total gain, and then we have our percentage total gain, and then it averages all together. So you can see in this example, it came out to negative 8.31% since 4/27 till today, which is 6/23. So that's almost 2 months. And then here's how the indexes perform. So you can see that this little hypothetical portfolio performed slightly better than all of the indexes. But then I take it a step further, and then we have a nice little benchmark chart. So you could compare each stock that you have in your portfolio to each index to see how they're performing. And then here's the benchmark data tab. And this is pretty much where the magic is happening for that benchmark chart. So instead of this stock, let's pick, how about a different one? How about TGA? And then we can go back to the benchmark chart, and then you can see here's TGA compared to the SPY. Maybe we want to compare it to the Dow Jones. So then we just switch that, and then everything will update. And then there you go. There it is compared to the Dow Jones. And then, of course, the Qs, which has suffered the most in this bear market. And you can see the price updates accordingly. So we are going to dive right in. So we know exactly how to show you exactly how to make this. We're going to start with a brand new sheet. Let's name it. So I'm going to name it Benchmark Tracker. And the very first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to write down all of the columns that we're going to have. So we're going to have our tickers, our price chart, our price, cost bias, shares, total gain, and then gain/loss, percentage. And then we'll start with that. That's just the basics. We'll get into making it all nice fancy colors. Now we're going to put in the 10 stocks. So put in whatever, and it doesn't have to be 10. It could be more than 10. If you only, or it could be less. If you have 5 stocks, put in 5. If you have 100, go crazy and put in all 100. But let me just type in all of the different tickers. So once we have that, we're actually going to skip the price chart because that's probably going to be the hardest equation. We're going to jump over to the price. So for those of you who don't know, we can pull live, and I'll say live-ish, stock market data into Google Sheets with the function Google Finance. So we're going to type that, and you could click on the question mark and read over exactly what it is. I have a ton of videos going over all this. If you're a returning viewer, you already know what to do. So we're going to do Google Finance. We want to select A2 because that's where our ticker is. Hit comma. And well, we don't even have to hit comma. We could do it like that, and it's going to pull the price. If we wanted to pull something else other than the price, we could hit comma, and then we could do something like market cap. And then close. Whoops. Close that. And then it'll load the market cap. So there's the market cap, $125 million. But we don't want the market cap. We just want the price. So we're going to delete that, hit enter, and then it loads. And then we're going to take this and drag the function down. So we'll pull the price for everything else. Now the cost, there's not going to be a function. It's just what you bought the stock for. So I'll put in my hypothetical price points. So this is what I bought all of these stocks for, we'll say. I don't own any of these stocks. And then our cost bias. How much money did you put into each stock? Again, my example is with $1,000 invested. So if there's 10 stocks, we divide that $1,000 with $100 each. And then for the shares, that's going to be pretty straightforward. We are just going to do equals that $100 and divide it by what our cost is. And then autofill, there we go. We'll change E to be $ as well. And shares, we'll drop it down to the 100th. All right. So we're starting to look pretty good. Now we're going to go on to total gain. So again, this is a pretty easy equation. All it is the amount of shares that we have multiplied by the current price. And then we'll autofill. And then the last one, which is maybe the second hardest equation, it's really even not that hard. What is our gain or loss percentage-wise? So before we even do anything, I want to change it to the percent format. And then we're going to jump back here. We're going to do equals. And then what we're going to want is C minus D. Close that parentheses. Then we want to divide it by D. That's how we get what our gain or loss is. It's like 7th grade math right there. So there we go. We have all of our gains or losses. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy. The last thing we want to do is the price chart, which is probably the longest equation. We're going to be using something called the Sparkline Formula. And pretty much, if you type in Sparkline, you could also click on this to read through it and learn about it. But we're going to kind of get a little complex here. It's going to involve some indexing and stuff like that. So just bear with me. So it's going to be Sparkline Index. Now we're pulling from Google Finance, so we want that, of course. And we're going to click on A2 because that's the stock we want. And then we're going to type in price because we want to pull the price. Then comma. Now here we go. Here's the first thing. We're going to want work day, open parentheses, today, then open and close parentheses, comma minus 250. So what this is saying is take every single day during the week, that's the work day, from today all the way back 250 work days, which should be around 365 days because there's around 250 work days in a year. Then we want to close that, do comma, today, open, close, close, comma, comma 2. We're doing comma, comma 2 because that is the index. So now we're jumping over to that index that we put over here. The reason why we're saying 2 is because it's going to give us not only the day, well, it's going to give us the day that each price is. We don't want that. We just want the price. We don't need the date. So comma, comma 2 is just saying, just pull the price in that little function. If we were to get rid of all this, get rid of the Sparkline, get rid of the index, and do this Google Finance, A2, price, workday, you're going to get like 2 columns worth of information. We only need 1 column. So that's why we're doing that. Then we're going to close that. And we could technically finish here, but that's just going to give us a line chart. I don't want a line chart. I want the bar chart because I think it looks nicer. So we're going to do comma, squiggly bracket, quotation, chart, type, close that quotation, do another comma, quotation, column, close that quotation, close the squiggly bracket, close the parentheses, hit enter, it loads, and then boom, there's our column chart. So with that, we want to change the color, and I want that nice orange that I have. It's pretty simple. You just go right in here, pick whatever color. You don't have to pick orange, but that's how we get that color. Then we could drag this down, and now it is going to pull the chart for every single stock that we have. And just to show you how everything's dynamic, if we were to go up here and let's change it to, how about Apple? you'll see everything will update. So now the chart looks different, the price is different, all of that. But we're going to change it back to ASTR. And before we start jumping in to the next step, I'm going to add another column. You may or may not want to do this. We'll do the name. So say you are trading a bunch of stocks that maybe you don't know the name of. If you do equals Google Finance, click on that, do a comma, and then write name, you will actually pull the name of the actual stock. So that's the name of that stock. And if we scroll down, here's the name of all the different companies. So if you want that, it's in there. If you don't, that's all right. But we'll clean this up a little. We'll bold that. I'm going to highlight all of this, and I like everything centered. And now we're almost done with this part, and then we can move on to the benchmark parts. But what I want to do now is highlight the bottom, because we have 10 different stocks here. We need to know what the overall performance is for this portfolio. So what you can do here is equal sum. This should equal 1,000, which it does. Maybe you're not putting in $100. Maybe you're putting more money into some stocks and less into others. But you want to know what your total cost bias is. So mine was $1,000. And then what we want is what is our total gain and our total loss or gain. So total gain is pretty easy. It's just another sum. So we're going to do sum. There we go. So I had $1,000. Now I'm down a little bit. I have $916. And then what is our average gain or loss? So we're going to do equals H12 and divide that by our cost bias. Hit enter, and then after that, -1. I forgot that. So -1. So there we go. So pretty much we're just taking what we currently have and dividing it by what we started with, and then subtracting it by 1. So you can see we're down a little over 8%. So if this number was higher, if we had a positive return and say this was $1,100, then this would be higher. This would say positive 10%. But that's how we got all that. And that's pretty much the very first step. We could bold that. The next thing we want to do is create our benchmarks. So we could now copy all of this. And this is easy. This is just going to be a bunch of copy and pasting. And we're going to put it down here. And now I'm going to write down, we have the SPY, we have the NASDAQ, and we have the Dow Jones. So again, if you want the name, then we could do that. You just want to copy what we have up here. And then we want to drop it down here. And then instead of A2, we're now in A15. We want to pull A15, which is the SPY. You see how that's highlighted. Hit enter, it loads, and there we go. S&P 500. And then we could drop those down, and we could get the names for all of that. We could expand B a little bit so we could see the Dow Jones. Price chart, same deal. We're going to highlight all of this. And then you're going to go to the price chart, paste it in, but instead of A2, we want A15. Hit enter. There's the S&P 500. And then drag those down so we pull the rest. And what I want for this, I want a nice dark green. Whoops, not the background. I want a green. You know what? I'll pick this green up here. So there we go. We got that green. Price, going to be the Google Finance function. You can copy and paste it, or it may even be quicker just to type in Google Finance. And then we change that to A15. Drag that down. Cost is going to be how much the index is as you're investing. So before you drop that $1,000 into these stocks, how much is the S&P 500? So on 427, when I recorded all this, the S&P 500 was 420.53. The NASDAQ was 320.07. And the Dow Jones was 335.69. Our cost bias is going to be that hypothetical $1,000. So instead of $1,000 across these 10 stocks, what if we just threw $1,000 into one of the indexes? Shares is going to be the same function up here, where we're just dividing that $1,000 by what the cost of the index is. And then we got all 3 tickers for the amount of shares. Then total gain is going to be the same deal, where it's going to be column G multiplied by column D. So equals G times D. So that's the shares we have and its current price. Hit OK. We'll make that all dollars. And then for the gain or loss, it's going to be our total gain divided by the cost bias. Whoops. Divided by the cost bias and then subtracted by 1. And then we can bring that down. And then there we go. There's that -10, -11, and -8.62%. So we're pretty much almost done with this. Now it's just a matter of cleaning it up. Then we could jump over to the chart. But we want to put one row above, and I want to merge all of this. So we're going to merge this, and we are going to name this $1,000 invested into Think Stocks, top rated stocks on 04-27-2022. And again, if you have more than $1,000 or less, whatever, just that's what that should say. You don't even need that, but I just have it for the example's sake. I'm going to put another row below here, and I am going to merge all of this. And then this is going to say $1,000 invested into SPY, QQQ, DIA, or end DIA as benchmarks on 4-27-2022. Hit enter, and then I will highlight that. And then the rest is not much. The rest is just kind of making it look nice with color. So we're going to do that, and we'll match what I had. So this was like a darker orange. This row up here was a little bit lighter orange, maybe something like that. And then all of this was an even lighter orange, I think the lightest. So there's that. And then for the green, I had a dark green. Whoops, not the text. So I had a dark green like that. That may be a little too dark. And this was a little bit lighter. And then this was the lightest green. Yeah, we'll change this. So instead of that, we'll drop it down one. There we go, that looks good enough. And then row 14 we'll delete, so it just kind of connects it together. And then I like to get rid of the grid lines because I think they're ugly. And then there we go. So as you'll see, as the day goes by and the price goes up and down, you'll see everything readjust, and everything over here will be dynamic, so you can see if we're beating or losing against the indexes. But now let's get on to the benchmark chart and the benchmark data tab. So we're going to rename this, and this is going to be my positions. And then let's create two more tabs. So rename benchmark chart. And then one last tab, rename benchmark data. All right, so for the benchmark data, we're going to want to merge these two cells. So merge A and B and merge C and D. And then what we want to do is right click on A and B that we merged, and we want to go to data validation, and then it says list from range. Go back to positions. We're on formula. You're going to click on that, and we want to pull from this range. These three, which are the three benchmarks that we're using. Hit OK, and then hit save. And then now we can see we could select from the three. So let's select the SPY. And then this, right click, data validation. And then we're on range. So we want to click on the little 4 checker box, highlight all of that, hit OK, and then hit save. Go back to data. And you can see here's all of our stocks. So if I were to go and change a stock, let's go to, how about ARM? Let's change it to, how about Apple again? Hit enter. If we go back to benchmark data, you see that updates. There's Apple now. So we could go back here. We'll change this back to ARM. Hit enter. And then you can see Apple is no longer on the list. It's still up here in our cell, but it says invalid input. So we'll change it to ARM. And then there we go. We're good to go. So now the next, what we're doing, now remember, we started on 4/27. If you're starting today, as you're watching this or whatever other day, that's what we need to put in for everything. But because we're starting on 4/27, I'm going to do Google Finance, A1, because we want to pull our benchmark. And then we want to do price, comma. Then we want to do 4-27-2022, close that parenthesis, quotation, comma, today, then open, close, close, close. So pretty much what we're saying is pull price of A1, which is the SPY, from 4/27 to today's date. Hit enter, it loads, and then there is those two columns I was talking about. So remember, back to the price chart right here, why did we have that comma, comma 2, and why did we throw index in? Well, it is to get rid of all of this, because for that, we didn't need the dates. We didn't need where it says date and close. We just need all the prices. So that's the SPY. Now to get this, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we could pretty much copy all of this, paste it up here, and instead of A1, we want C1. Oh, and I just noticed it's not ARM, it's AMR. AMR. So let's change that. That's probably why that wasn't showing everything. There we go. AMR. So they're the full amount of days. So we are almost done with the data, and then creating the chart is probably the easiest thing. So now what we need to do is jump over here, and we want our chart data, because this is too much of a mess to pull from. And you know what, before that, let's put everything centered, because you know how I like everything nice and centered. And then we'll pull out the dates on both of those. All right, so now we're going to go over to F, G, and H, merge that, and we're going to name this chart data. Then down here, we want date, QQQ, and, well, we don't want to actually type in QQQ. We want to do equals A1, and then go up here, equals C1. So we'll just pull. So this, watch how it says the SPY. When we change this to say the Qs, then it changes to the Qs. Now for date, that's going to be pretty easy. We just pretty much want to do equals A3, hit enter, but I don't want the time at the end. So we're going to go up to this, and we're just going to choose the date right here. So it just shows the day. It doesn't show the time as well. And then we're just going to drag this all the way down, however long you think that is going to be. So maybe you want it for a full year. So make sure it's over 365 days so you won't have a problem. And it's just pulling all the dates that we have over here. And now for the close, we need to now change it from a price into a percentage. So to do that, we want to do equals B3, because that's its current price, divided by its current price, or at least its price on 4/27, whatever our start date is, and subtract that by 1. And you should get 0. And we want to make this a percentage. And then we want to do the same thing with AMR. So we want to do equals D3 divided by D3 minus 1, hit enter. So now we have 0. Again, make sure that that is percentage. And now we're going to go back over here where it says B3 divided by B3. We want to do $sign for the B3, at least the second B3. So now it will stay, that second one will stay B3, because we are going to pull what the percentage is, what the percent changes every single day that it changes compared to when we initially started to invest. So we're going to hit enter. It auto-filled it already for me. So there it all is. And the same deal here. So D3, we want to do $sign, hit enter, and then it autofills. Boom, there we go. We're not completely done with this equation. We have to do an if is blank. So if is blank A3, comma, quotation, quotation, comma, hit enter, and I'll explain this in a second. All right, so there we go. So pretty much what this is saying is, hey, if this cell, A3, this one highlighted, if it is blank, then we want to leave this cell blank. That's what comma, comma means. If it's not blank, then do this equation. And the reason why is when we get to here, so the 23rd hasn't happened yet, so that's why this doesn't have a price. It's just staying blank. And we want that cell to be blank until there's actually the next day here, and then that could come into play. So you want that equation, this if it is blank, and we want to throw it into our other one as well. So I'm just going to highlight this part, jump over here, and then put it in between the equals and D3, hit enter. And now we could take this, and again, you want to drag it all the way down to however many days you want. You want 365 days, go for it. You want 3 years worth of data. You just got to drag it down, over 1,000 cells. So we'll drag this one down a little bit more as well, past that 400 day or 300 day mark into the 400s. So we know we're over a year. All right, so we're good. So we could clean this up really quick. So we're going to put that all centered. All right, and now to create the chart, what we actually want to do is, we want to delete chart data really quick. Just delete that column so it doesn't mess up the chart. Highlight all 3 columns, go to insert chart, and then it generates this chart. And then we could go back, we could name this something like benchmark, comparison, and we could bold it, change the format if we want, center it, all that good stuff. And then you can see we have the Qs and AMR, and we can actually X out of this. So it's pretty easy and straightforward. I want to delete the date because I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We know that that's supposed to be the date, so it just gives more room for the chart. Then we could go back up here and then type in chart data. So the reason why I did that again is if you have this in here, it may not pull Q and AMR. It may get confused and these may be left blank. But what's cool is now we go here and change the SPY. See, it actually updates it. So you can see this is the SPY. And then if we want to change this, let's change this to how about that? Everything gets updated. So now what you want to do is hit Control C, go over to benchmark chart, Control V. So we just pasted that into there. So now let's drag this up here. We can make it bigger. So we can do a little bit of that. Maybe that's too wide. Shrink that a little. Have it right about there. I don't like the grid lines, as you already know now. So we'll get rid of the grid lines. We can click on this. We'll double click. Go to Customize, Chart Style. Get rid of the border. So that clears the border. We can X out of that. And I think that just kind of looks cleaner. And then you can mess around with the font. I changed the font. You can mess around with these colors. So if we want colors that I have, like in my positions, instead of this being red, we want this to be orange. I think it was actually that orange. We can make the thickness bigger, thickness of a 4. Change this blue to the green, and then also make that 4. So you can customize the chart however you want. I won't go crazy because I know this video is already going to be long enough. And then you can delete this, so we don't need that. And then all I really had over here was these were colored as well. So this section was green. I made this section orange. And then this was just gray. Just so we know, okay, this is our orange line. This is going to be our green line, which also lines up with this. Our benchmarks are green, and then our portfolio is orange. So we go back to the benchmark chart. It's easy to just kind of visualize it really quick. So we go back to benchmark data. Again, let's change it again. So let's do about SBO, whatever that is, compared to the Dow Jones. We go back here, and you can see those two updated. And guys, that's pretty much it. That is how you can make a benchmark tracker to track your entire portfolio against the major benchmarks like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones. If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button And you could also download this tracker on my Patreon. Link is in the description. As always, guys, I will see you in the next one.